So you can see Raghu's title, and I think he is a digital innovator. Obviously, the products and services that U.S. Bank has are immense. So I really wanted to be prepared today to interview him. So we talked on Monday morning, but before that, on Sunday night, my daughter had been talking to me about Chat GPT, and I said, I'm going to do some research on him. So my first question is, what was it like to be part of a lunar landing?
I think it was great in my dreams. That didn't happen.
That didn't happen? Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Well, I guess my joke didn't work. Oh, well. So let me ask you a question. You know, obviously we're here to talk about digital first marketing and engaging consumers. But what got you engaged in the first place? What do you think created your path to being where you're at today, all the way back to when you were growing up in India?
First of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Brand Innovators, for having me, and thank you, Group M. What a great space. John, again, thank you for doing this. Yeah, I think the digital first marketing. So let me. Where do I start? I think it's really a series of accidents, right? Like I was an engineer, like many people who moved here for education from India. Was good at math, good at science, and then I started doing analytics basically for AOL, which is for people of certain age. You remember AOL. So that was my start, and then at that point, I was just exploring what else I want to do, right? And I think marketing sounded interesting, and at that point, doing something transformative and something that's growth oriented seemed interesting. So I really kind of started moving to a marketing role, more focused on loyalty marketing at United, the travel company in Chicago, and that got me going in marketing first of all. And really, this invent of iPhone and how things move digitally kind of got me excited, right? Like one is you kind of basically leaping into the future. You don't know what's going to happen, but it's really disruptive and transformative. So that's kind of when I basically landed into digital marketing. Right, one of my old bosses was in Barclays, one of the UK banks, and really starting a digital marketing group about 12 years ago. So again, I was just bold enough and took the risk to really explore, and it worked out well in the last 12 years.
Yeah. Now, what was that transition like going from being in, you know, a lot of people here space in the digital media space at AOL and in the kind of sagent, you know, kind of beginning time for that, and moving into banking? What was that transition like?
Yeah, I think for me, I was always looking at the function, and I think marketing always interested me, and the intersection of marketing and technology always excited me, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that kind of was the passion. And I think from an industry standpoint, I was wrapping up my MBA in Chicago, and you know, but once you come out of MBA, you have a lot of loans and all that. I always thought like finance and credit was a very powerful instrument, right? Like to kind of really build your future, build your career and all that. But it was kind of what's happening in the market was opposite, right? 2008 financial crisis and all that. But I still believed credit is a very important tool. And I think if you have the right risk appetite, I think it's going to do wonders for the community as well as oneself. So that was kind of my like what pulled me into finance industry, right? Well, a lot of people are moving away from finance. I was actually didn't hesitate to kind of take a job in finance.
I love that because, you know, you really, you know, you think about how important credit is for so many of us to realize our purpose, whether the purpose is buying a house, whether that purpose is buying your first car, or whether that purpose is starting a business. So, you know, you really, people say, well, geez, being in banking, is that really leaning into purpose? But it really sounds like it was for you, or you at least were able to evolve it to really be that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I wouldn't have stayed in the industry for 12 plus years if that was not the case, right? You're spending 50 hours away from home, might as well do something useful.
Yeah, 100%. So now, when you think about, you know, the title of this, digital first, and engaging with consumers in a digital first way, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, but I think it's really, at the end of the day, it's about being where the customers are, right? Like if they were in a sporting arena, you're heavily marketing there, right? Like if they were watching TV, like the 60s and the 70s, then that's kind of where you are as a marketer. I think digital first is just being there for the customers where they are, and the opportunity and the risk is that it's such a disruptive environment that you're constantly learning, you're constantly innovating, you're constantly transforming, right? And obviously that excites me, but at the same time, it's a lot to handle because like what you think was the right strategy last year is sort of a BAU this year, and it's going to be going away the next year. So you're constantly you had to be in a virtuous cycle of innovation and being disruptive and testing and learning and scaling. But at the end of the day, it's about being where customers are, right? Like, and the way we approach it at US Bank is really in three different ways, right? Like one is developing and delivering personalized experiences, personalized engagement with the customers digitally, right? Like second pieces around being where they are. I think the research shows that customers especially do a lot of the shopping online, right? Do a lot of the information gathering online, right? Whether it's finance or other industries. So being able to kind of seamlessly be where customers are, right, in multiple channels. And then the power of data, right? Like I think with the explosion of data in terms of how customers are interacting online and how what their preferences are, what they're looking for, what their needs are. Being able to kind of identify that and being able to personalize that interaction, that's all digital first to me, right? Like one being, yeah.
That customer journey thing is such an amazing transformation from the time, say, you started in banking until today. What that journey for your customers and their interaction with you looks so different. I know at OUTFRONT, being in the out-of-home business, the ability for us to be involved with marketers as that journey is moving forward and kind of being symbiotic with digital screens and digital mobile devices really is really powerful. So that's wonderful. Did you ever think back, when you started in this business back at Barclays and you're in your first job in banking, could you ever imagine that people would be transacting business in your space the way it is done today?
Yeah, I mean, I thought again, I started in the digital space about 2010, right? Like core and core digital marketing. And at that point, obviously, a lot of the servicing elements were moving into the digital space, right? Whether it's online or mobile. But I think that really the digital marketing of it really picked up in the last 6 years within financial industry. And we tend to be a little bit behind other industries, right, when it comes to digital marketing practice. But it's picked up really well before the pandemic, and it's really scaled more aggressively during the pandemic. And I think at this point, I would say majority of the customers are interacting online, which kind of gives us an opportunity to kind of do better there, engage well there, both from a prospecting and deepening standpoint.
So when you had the opportunity to make the move over to US Bank, what was it that excited you about the digital marketing, digital transformation that was possible at US Bank?
Yeah, I think for me, as I said, I think anything that was transformation and growth oriented was what interested me. And obviously the intersection of digital and marketing was where I was at that point. And this role at US Bank, I really have two major responsibilities, right? One is MarTech transformation, kind of bringing in the right tools to transform our marketing technology. And the second piece is how do we go to market with that, right, digitally. And it kind of segued nicely between the roles I had in the past, number one. And then I think second thing is, again, US Bank, we serve both B2B and B2C clients. And I think we are much more involved at the B2C side compared to the B2B. And we're still kind of talking to vendors, talking to partners to kind of understand how we can do much better in the B2B space from a digital marketing standpoint. But again, I think what excites me is the scale of US Bank, the scale of opportunity, and the fact that we are still searching for an answer, right? We're never there at the finish line.
That's right. And since you've been there, give me an example of initiative or a makeover, so to speak, that you're really proud of.
Yeah, I would say I think we got the framework right, in terms of what capabilities we need, both from a prospecting standpoint and deepening engagement standpoint to deliver the best for the customers, right? I think what that means is like getting the right data in place, right? Getting the right orchestration in place, getting the right experience at the customer level, on the digital layer. I think we have a pretty good framework there. We've kind of made a lot of progress there, so I feel pretty good about that. I think really what we need to do now is like kind of scale in multiple areas, right? As I said, with B2C, we're already evolved. We just need to scale aggressively. And with B2B, we're still trying to use that framework, but really go to market in a much more effective way digitally. I think like the B2B landscape is also changing in a way that customers are now shopping more and more online, right? Like what used to be a very sales-based channel is now moving a little more towards the digital space. So how do we kind of really use that opportunity and kind of engage customers the right way, the clients the right way? That's kind of what we are looking at.
So I'm curious, you've seen with the recent banking crisis, you've seen a lot of this discussion about, well, the regional banks, kind of like the regional banks, there's these problems with the regional banks. But to your point, if you're kind of like a digital first bank, I wouldn't consider U.S. Bank a regional bank. You may not be operating in all 50 states, but you have consumers and people or your customers in all 50 states. Tell me, what does that mean to you? Regional versus national versus local bank today.
I mean, I think regional, again, that's a very banking term. I think we operate in 25, 26 states. We have about 21 million customers. We just reported our revenue this morning, right? It looks just like any other big bank. So I don't know if I would coin it regional, but I think we are operating at scale, right? We are doing the right thing for the customers in terms of digital, right? And I think, again, banking crisis is there in terms of the smaller banks, but it really depends on the risk appetite of a bank, how diversified their business is and all that. And I think, again, I'm not going to say anything that's not in our quarterly report this morning, but we are kind of performing pretty solid there, I think.
Absolutely. So now, when you start to think about what's next, what's in that digital connection along the consumer journey, 5 years from now, what do you think that's going to look like? And as a marketer, what do you need to be really aware of?
Yeah, it's great that you're asking the question. I think last week I was at my son's classroom talking about immigration. And what that means is obviously everyone's got their own immigration story, and my story was how technology and business change, and along with that I kind of immigrated. And then I also talked a little bit about what's up in the future, right? Because these are fifth grade kids, and I think it's amazing to see how technology has changed over time. Especially the way I look at it is I grew up in the pre-information era. I think I started working during the information era. I think we are now in the post-information era. What that means is with an example, right? I think back in the 90s, you were very comfortable calling a call center to service something. I think in the 2000s and 2010s, you're probably much more comfortable opening up an app and solving for the problem. I think the kids and the next generation is going to be much more comfortable talking, I think, but not talking to a person, but to Alexa or some other AI device that's sitting there. And the way I look at it is I think the format with which we're going to be marketing will change, but the fundamental principles of marketing will still remain, right? I think, and I think there's going to be a lot of automation, a lot of data-driven techniques, and also a lot of risk that comes along with it, right? To make sure we're kind of marketing to the right people or servicing the right people. So I think the way I look at it is it's going to be a lot more AI-driven, automation-driven, and our ability to kind of harness the data, as well as kind of switch to, as I said, where customers are, right? They might not be in apps anymore, and they might be interacting with Alexa. I don't know, right? I think, but being able to be ready for that is probably going to be a key thing.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing that evolution you've seen and been a part of. It's kind of segue into something a little different now. I love what you said about, you going to your kid's school and telling your immigration story. We were having a little conversation about this, about, where we started and working in Manhattan today. Tell me, I'd love to hear, what does that mean to you? Like to think about, where you started your life and to be here, running marketing for a major U.S. bank. I mean, it's really incredibly awesome. So, I'd love to hear, from the heart, what that means to you.
I mean, I think the first thing is to be thankful to what you got, right? Like I think, and the second thing is I think it's a privilege, right? I think the only thing you can do at this point is like, if you find something, just leave it better than how you found it, right? Whether it's job, your family, your environment, all of that. So you feel more responsible than anything, right? Like, so I think it's a privilege and it's a responsibility.
Yeah, I love that. Well, love to open it up to questions. Got some questions out in the field for Raghu. Come on, Sean. I know you got a question. Oh, Val Vespa's got a question.
Oh my God, this is so cute. It's like a present. Anyway, sorry. So when you, obviously AI is like a huge topic right now, and it's like the hottest buzzy thing to talk about. Are there places and spaces that you've been testing this out for some time now, or are you just starting to think about it? Like where are you with that? And I always just think about, from a consumer perspective, product-based perspective, there could be a lot that could go wrong with that. So talk about the sort of process of testing and learning and how you adapt that into your day-to-day stuff that you're doing. I think that's a very open-ended question, so apologies.
Yeah, thanks, Val. I think it's a great question. Again, I think our framework is really either test, learn, and fail fast, or test, learn, and scale, right? I think those are the two options we kind of pursue. And I have Jason Crawford, who's our head of media, join me as well. He kind of knows all about it. But I think from an AI standpoint, I can share a little bit about what we're looking into, right? Content is a big space, right? We kind of go with the static content when it comes to marketing and messaging. How do we kind of use data and intelligence to really test quickly in terms of different variations of content, sort of integrate that with the AI decisioning system. So that's a big opportunity. What we call next best action, that's kind of an internal term, but being able to understand customers' needs and customers' online behaviors, and being able to be more personalized and relevant. What that needs is basically understanding, crunching the data and decisioning, and the AI can do that. And I think the other piece is servicing, right? I think a lot of the chatbots and how we can service at least some of the common questions and so forth. I think those are the areas we are either testing or trying to expand on. And I'm sure there's a few things on the media side that Jason is working on with our media agency. But all of that is evolving. But again, we don't know what's going to be the right solutions, but certainly we are deep into the testing.
Thanks, Raghu. Brandon Spano, All City Network. I guess I'm wondering from a brand standpoint, and I guess this is marketing and messaging and probably a couple different categories, but there's the bank situation we're all familiar with, of course, and then depositors pulling money. And, I think you guys, along with many other banks and in news stories across the country, when you're faced with that, does your ad spend increase so that you can get in front of it and you can change the messaging there, so you can get in front of the news? Do you all of a sudden create a new product that is offered to different people so that you can create more depositors? How do you look at that from, hey, there's this macro problem that we have nothing to do with, we're being affected by it, so now we have to change? And then I guess the last one is Apple obviously just announces this week that they're going to offer a savings account that has a 4.15% yield on it, which is obviously, seems like it's directly being weaponized against banks at this time, which I don't know, you can speak on that if you want, but it seems to me like from a brand marketing standpoint, you kind of have a lot to overcome, or at least to go to the office every day and say like, hey, what are we going to do about this? How are we winning customers back? How are we creating new customers? So I know that's a lot, but I would just love like your kind of overall baseline, like how do we go to war with this every day?
Yeah, I think I can address the question in a couple of levels, right? But I think like banking is a cyclical business, right? I think like there's more demand for mortgage at some point, and then credit card, and then now it's deposits, and it changes, right? And I think every bank has its strategy based on their risk appetite to kind of figure out how they want to go to market, right? And I think like obviously the marketing that we do is a product of that, right? In terms of what our business strategy is, which is kind of informed by what the market is, right? So there is a lot of activity definitely happening in the deposit space, and we are marketing heavily too from a deposit CD standpoint. So no surprises there. But from a brand marketing standpoint, I think brand is something long term, right? I think we do believe like the top of the funnel and the lower funnel needs to kind of work really well together. I think the risk with some of the data and technology and digital is that we are all consumers, and our business people are also consumers. So everyone tends to talk more lower funnel and, hey, how many clicks we got, how many, not likes, but how many conversions we got and so forth. And it's always a challenge to kind of educate them around brand marketing and the longer term impact of it. I would say like Jason and I, like we spend every day talking and making the case around the fact that, hey, we need to kind of connect lower funnel and top of funnel, right? I think that's going to be a challenge, right? I think from a marketer standpoint, irrespective of your industry, and specifically for finance, again, I think like this is not the first time a tech company came in with a financial product, right? I think fintech has been around for like 8-10 years at least, to my knowledge, and I think like every bank's got their own strategy in terms of how they want to react to it. But again, I don't think, this is my personal opinion, I think. I think it's just another offer that's in the market from an Apple standpoint. So
that's why you met a great out-of-home partner today to help you with your brand marketing. So
great.
I actually had one more question. When you think about for your consumers, your current consumers, what's the biggest pain point you hear from them that you guys are trying to solve for? Maybe not just be you, it could be the industry, but what's the biggest pain point for your consumers, and what are you doing to overcome that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a pain point that customers came out and announced, but I think like certainly banks have a lot of data and we have a lot of understanding of the customers, but how do we use the data to come in and interact with the customers in a very useful and engaging way that is useful for the customers? I think that's probably, I would say, what in general the industry is solving for, right? I think like nobody wants to sit in front of a laptop on a Saturday morning and crunch their account, right? Whether it's deposits or card, and say how much you spent, how much you saved and all that. But like in a way, how can we make it easier for them to kind of manage their finances so that they can move on and do what's important in life, whether it's a soccer game or something else on a Saturday morning, right? That's what we're trying to solve for.
Perfect. Good question. You had mentioned that, by the way, thank you so much for everything so far. You had mentioned that digital is about meeting the consumers where they are, and knowing that consumers are very multifaceted and not always thinking about finance. How do you see, a bank's role in, especially from a marketing perspective, in engaging with those consumers really in all facets of their lives?
Can you give me an example when you say all facets, beyond banking or?
Yeah, I would say beyond banking. Like, do you see a role of, the relationship that the bank has with the consumer to, help them in other facets of their lives outside of just their finances?
It depends on consumers' perception of the brand and how much they want to engage, as well as the business strategy. But I think I don't want to mention names, but there are banks who do that as well, right? I think like who connect their financial product to travel and other adjacencies, right? I think we do have travel rewards, credit card, and so forth. But I think that's kind of a tip of the iceberg, right? But being able to kind of connect your financial products with other lifestyle brands is one way to do it, and I think different banks are doing it at varying degrees. We do have a play there, but again, it depends on specific industry. So.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Raghu.
Thank you so much.